Hey folks, this is Troy Thompson, and I just wanted to break in here. Now, as you know, we are not monetized. However, you can buy us a coffee. There'll be a little emblem that says you can support the show on whichever platform it is that you are listening to the Sunnyside of Life, and I would be darn honored if you bought me a coffee, so to speak. Or, I think the emblem, I changed it to a beer, which seems, to be honest, probably more appropriate. So buy me a coffee, buy me a beer, whatever it is, and that helps support the show so we can continue to develop more and more great skits and have more and more great conversations just like this. And if you do, great. If you don't, that's just fine too. Just wanted to let you know. Now back to the show. I'm Troy Thompson. Over the last 15 years, our family has worked hard to create a place we call the center of the universe. A place where our kids and someday our grandkids can come home to and laugh, have fun, learn how to work, pray, worship God, and be a place to celebrate life with all our friends. After a quarter century in uniform, I put away one set of boots for another, working on our acreage, improving the land, fixing some structures, and building new ones. We say, give back to the community, be useful, keep your hands calloused, and spread the gospel. This is a little place in a little state right in the middle of flyover country, from which cries out a voice in the wilderness to all who might want to listen, learn, and laugh along with us. This is our American dream. Hello, friends and neighbors, and welcome to Sunnyside. Step on over to the sunny side of the street. I'm not singing that song right, but I'm in a great mood as I record this because I just completed baling. And I talk about baling hay way too much. It's like you've tuned in to a podcast where you're listening to farmers, but I only have one thing that I raise, and this is only the second year that I've done it. It's only the second actual crop of alfalfa hay, and I don't really know what I'm doing. Today, this has been a long process, friends. It's been a long process. I had to learn. So I bought a tractor, you know, if you listen to this. Just when I retired. So about, almost 3 years ago. Well, probably 3 years ago, I bought this tractor. John Deere 4066R. Nice little tractor. It's the biggest little tractor you can get from John Deere. How about that? And so with all the accoutrement, because I am one of those guys that retired and lives on an acreage and needs a tractor. So that's what I've got. Anyway, it turns out that doesn't have it doesn't have hydraulics in the back. Like every tractor that I ever grew up with on the farm as a kid. And that was frustrating. So last year I used my dad's International 856, which he really enjoyed, seeing me pull my John Deere equipment around with his tractor. And I enjoyed it too, because I like the 856, kind of grew up on that. But I had to figure out a way. Now, it turns out that John Deere will conveniently sell you a kit that you can install for yourself to put that on the back of your tractor, those hydraulic hookups, for $1,500. They'll put it on for you, which is $3,000. I did neither of those things because it turns out there are hydraulics. I have a bucket on my tractor, and so clearly there's hydraulics. It's just that they're forward. They're on the front side. So you probably, if you're a mechanical type person, you probably were thinking, well, duh. So I learned how to extend the little cable, the little hose. I needed one hydraulic hose that needed to go from the implement, the hay bind, to the front of the tractor. And so I learned how to do that. And that was fun. And it worked. It was so I could control it with my joystick. I just needed to be able to, lift it and lower it. That's all I needed to be able to do. And now, so I did the entire hay operation with my little John Deere 4066R, which I don't know. It probably looks silly because like the hay bind's kind of big. But it was cute and it was great, and I cut it in time, and then it rained, and that was not helpful. But you take what God gives you, and so then the wind came, and so that dried it out, and then I turned it, and fluffed it up a little bit. You got to have fluffy hay. It's got to be dry. You can't have mold in your hay. That's not good. Apparently, animals don't like moldy food, unlike humans. And it turns out that I've never seen it, but I guess that hay can combust if it gets too hot and it starts, like grass. I don't know. Anyway, that all put the fear of God in me. So I was very concerned about it, making sure that it was dry. And so I turned it again. It rained. And I turned it, and then my windrows were a little too big, and so then I had to go slow when I started baling, and I had some problems there. Today, as I record this, I fixed my baler because, it turns out all I did was break a shear pin. That was the only problem. But I didn't know that. And since I bought the thing used, and it's not a new baler, it didn't come with instructions, and I am not a mechanical wizard, so I had to look it up on YouTube. Which, by the way, that was my dad's advice. My dad was born in 1946. His advice to fix the implement was, you should check it out on the YouTube. And so I did. But the only YouTube video that I could find that would explain specifically what I thought was the problem, I didn't think it was the shear pin, I thought it was something else, was in Spanish. So I was watching a Spanish, like I don't know if it's Mexican or Central American or whatever, but let's just say could be South American, but probably not Brazilian because that's Portuguese. Although, to be honest with you, I don't really know. Thank God there were, what do they call it? What are the words that you put underneath? Anyway, there were those. They had the words. Oh, so you're screaming at the radio, whatever you're listening to right now. Anyway, I couldn't think of what. Subtitles, thank you. There were English subtitles, and I was able to follow this guy as he walked through a very clear, in Spanish, with subtitles in English, explanatory video on how to check your timing on your baler, and balers are amazing machines. They've been around for like over 100 years, and I don't think anything's changed in them except not the square balers anyway. Right? So anyway, this is amazing to me, and I am out there working and getting all greasy, and turns out it was just the shear pin. So I didn't actually take anything apart, but I did pull all of the, you have to pull all the hay out of the chute, and then I could see how it worked. And that's when I discovered that the shear pin was broke on the flywheel, because I was like, why isn't this turning? That's why. It was turning, but it wasn't turning everything else. So then I went to town. I got a shear pin that I thought was, John Deere's very smart. They sell a shear pin that is 7/25 diameter. 7/25. That's pretty common. You can find that at the local hardware store, but you can't. And so I didn't have time to order it from John Deere, even though it says use John Deere parts, like they do. So I ended up using a 1/4-inch bolt, which is pretty close. But 7/25 is a little bit more than a quarter, but it's less than 5/16. I'll tell you that, because that's the size that I bought at the store, and for 64 cents and or 36 cents. I don't even know what it was, but anyway, that didn't work. So that was a wasted trip, and then I just used a 1/4-inch bolt, and that worked the rest of the time. I didn't have much left after, to do, just a couple of windrows that I had spread apart, so it was 2 became 4, and it worked great, and it was all done. Then I went and went to a track. We had the track banquet. They call them banquets in high school. I don't know if your school does this. They used to actually be banquets. People, a lot of times they were potlucks. Sometimes they ordered in pizza or whatever, but the families and the kids would come, and then the coaches would talk about the season, and they would give away the letters, and they would talk about the major accomplishments. And usually there's a farewell to the seniors. And all of that happened except the food part. It was at 3:00 in the afternoon. It's not just track. I mean, they all do it now. All of the sports programs in our school district, they need to come up with a different name than banquet, because it's not a banquet. It's just an event. It's not really a ceremony. They need to come up with a better name. But anyway, so we went to that. That took about 45 minutes, half hour. And then out we went. When I say we, I meant my son, Colin, the youngest. He came out with me to bale hay, and he was not happy about this. Now, in my mind, and probably yours, the man the adult, the owner of all of the equipment, should be, who has spent many years in his childhood baling straw, etc. And that should be the person who's in the tractor. And the kid should be loading the bales. That is not what happened. No, I had him drive the little tractor that we have, and I just put everything on pallets because I don't have anybody to help me. So normally, when I'm baling, I don't have, a hay rack. I don't have the kid standing on the back of the hay rack. Also, I only want to handle the things one time. So load them on the pallets, put the pallets in the shed, and then when somebody buys them, take them out on a pallet, put it in their vehicle, and watch them drive away. And after they pay me. And so that is it. That's it. And so one time, I learned that last year. We had to load them up on the trailer, then we loaded them onto the pallets, then I had to move the pallets, and then I put them into the shed, and then I had to take them out by hand when we loaded them up on and that was just ridiculous. So that's too many times to handle the bales, in my opinion. So now we think we've got this figured out. And anyway, so he's driving around. This is a great opportunity for Colin to learn how to get better at driving because we're trying to get his darn driver's license. So I learned a lot by driving a tractor, and he's been driving, and he's been taking his online courses, which is what you can do now in Iowa, is you can take online courses, and then you have to drive a certain number of hours. And he still makes me nervous when he drives vehicles. We have him drive us around, like chauffeur us around, and it's very hard on me because I'm one of those guys that I just like to be behind the wheel. So I'm always the driver for our family, and I've driven, I don't know, hundreds and hundreds and maybe 1 million miles, just from all of the recruiting that I did and all of that stuff. So it's a learning experience. And the other boys were very quick to want to get their license. And Colin's like, I get it. I'll get it when I get it. And it's like, oh my gosh, get your darn license, because now I'm your chauffeur for all of these events. Anyway, so it's a great opportunity for him to learn how to do that. And if he ever wants to be a forklift operator, there's the opportunity. He knows he learned how to, line himself up to the pallet and, get the forks into the pallet and move it around. So that was a useful skill. Useful skills that boys should know: how to operate tractors and how to operate tractors with forks and be able to load pallets. Obviously, they should also learn how to stack hay tightly so that it doesn't fall off the pallets. But because I did not have time to try to explain that today, I just wanted him to learn and just help me by driving around. That it would make it much quicker. So I could load all these things. And I did. I loaded them all, and then we ran out of pallets. And so I said, go ahead and take the truck back to the house. I'm going to go get more pallets. And then he went back to the house. This is after a couple of hours. And I got the pallets, and I'm back in the hayfield, and then I texted him. And I noticed that he had there's a thing you can do, and I don't know how you do it, but you can silence notifications. The boy had silenced his notifications on me. Like he thought he was done. Who silences notifications? I just ignore the call or ignore the text. I mean, it's my phone. I'll decide when I answer it, and I'll decide when I, read the text or respond to the text. I long for the days when we just had the phone connected to the wall. Those were like, we do not need to be in constant communication. There's old people say, I have it, they have their June bug or whatever their little phones are. I have it for emergencies. And they're just, maybe with old people there are more emergencies, but to be honest, there's just not that many emergencies. And, I realize that I'm baling and I'm working with a hay binder and, all these moving parts and everything like that. So, like Grandpa's stuck in the field. I guess there could be emergencies, but then, would you have your phone with you anyway? My dad's got a cell phone. He never has it on. I don't even know if he knows where it is. I don't even know, to be honest, I'm not sure what his phone number is. I don't think I even have it because he wouldn't answer it anyway. I like that. I know what his home phone number has been the same thing my whole life. So that's what I go with. But anyway, he silenced his notifications and, but I whatever. I texted him anyway. And so I loaded the remaining, 8, 9 pallets myself. No, 6 pallets myself, and then moved to the very small 1 acre field and was doing that. And then he showed up. So he did, and I'd loaded a couple of pallets on that at that time, and then he helped me with like the last three pallets or so. It was amazing, and it's done. Now I still got to move those stacks of, those marvelous stacks of hay on their pallets out of the field and bring them to the shed, but I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that another time. Tomorrow. You don't know when I'm recording this. It's Sunday. It's Sunday. That's how lazy I am. Just doing this on a Sunday night before I go to bed. So when you wake up and you listen to, because I'm sure it's what you do, the first thing you do every morning on Mondays is listen to the Sunnyside of Life. Thank you for that, by the way, or whenever you're listening. Awesome. I appreciate it. So anyway, there you go. I feel like I lifted 410 bales because I did. And I feel awesome. And I know tomorrow I will not feel the same way. I will feel very sore. And I got the little salve on my arms right now because I wore short sleeve shirts and I got a pretty good rash going. It's amazing. And I had very dirty ears. Just so you know, I'm recording this. I'm all cleaned up if it matters to you. But I had very dirty ears. I had hay in my ears. It was kind of windy today. And I wondered, do the horse women, the women that go to they're not going to the fair. They're going to the fair grounds, and they have horses. They spend a lot of money on horses. They got special trailers with horses. They wear the special pants. I've seen them in Fleet Farm. Ladies with big hips wearing horse pants that were the original yoga pants before yoga pants were cool, but these also come with boots. I've seen them. Wonder if those ladies think hay in your ears is sexy. No idea. It's not in there now. Wouldn't matter anyway. But it's just a thought that crossed my mind because it was also a lot of dirt. There's a lot of dirt in there. And there was some, I got big ears, I guess. Maybe I don't know. Anyway, so there you go. The hay is done. And this is the other thing, 410 bales because I thought I was going to get 150. I thought probably a good crock would be. Last fall, the first time with just alfalfa, 75. It was, I didn't know. And so I thought maybe I can double that. And it's 410. That's amazing. But also, my customers have told me that the hay bales were too big. So, like all of the market economy, and being at least a libertarian when it comes to the market economy, certainly not in moral and social values, but I was like, we'll go ahead and shrink the size of the bales. And so I did. So now they're the cute, I call them Barbie bales. They're 3 feet long. And, I can pick one up in each hand. And it's just great. And before they were like 5 feet long, which is probably too long for a hay bale or most bales, to be honest with you. So now they fit on the pallet all very neatly, and it's really great. That's a lot of conversation about hay. You probably you don't care about hay, but I do. It's just one of those side things that I've got going on here at Sunnyside, and it makes me happy. It makes me happy to produce something and to see the fruits of my labor and be rewarded with a bountiful harvest. It's a little browner than hay, not brown like, rotting brown, but just light. It was just in the sun a lot longer, and I turned it, several times to make sure it was dry. So it's a little lighter brown. It's still got some great green in it. It's got all the nutritional value, but it's a little lighter, than not as dark green as you might expect. But that's okay. I'm very happy with that. Also this past week, the first thing I did when last week's episode, which was a real barn burner, you can go back and listen to that. Haven't changed my opinion, by the way. When that was happening, I also listened to my episodes occasionally, and I had time because I went on the road and I bought a London fog machine. Now, a London fog machine is a company that's out of Minnesota, still around, been around since like 1960s. And what they do is they make like industrial mosquito foggers. So, if in small towns, I don't know how it is in your town, but around here, a lot of times the city will send out a notification that tonight we're spraying for mosquitoes. And if that bothers you, close your windows. So it's... we have a large property, in my opinion, big acreage, and it's been a great year banner year for mosquitoes. And so I saw something on Facebook Marketplace. I thought it was a good price contacted the guy. Is this still available? The usual button. He responded immediately. It is. And we worked out a deal. I went up and picked it up. It's big. It's heavy. It doesn't fit in the back of my Gator because I got the, like a town person Gator. I should have got a country person's Gator, which actually has a useful, dump bucket or dump, whatever you call those, whatever. The back of the thing is not as big as it should be. And Gators have those. We just got the 4-seater a long time ago, and we buzz around and it goes about 50 miles an hour, but it's not what we need. Not when we're serious hay businessing. So anyway, the London Fog thing doesn't fit in the back of that. So I had to use my parents' Gator. And they don't have a Gator. They have a mule. So I use their fits perfectly in the mule. So once again, Dad and Mom to the rescue with their equipment. But they're right across the road, which is awesome. That's what's great. One of the great things about living in Sunnyside is that it's the center of our universe, right in the middle of the family farm, and my parents are next door. Heidi's parents are right beside us. My brother's just up the road, and we hope that the kids will come and live by us too. We like that, and we hope that that's not in our house. Like once they graduate and move on, they move on. But hopefully they come back and live by us. That's what we hope for, or at least come back and see us quite a bit. So that is something, and it works. I did it the other night. I fogged the whole property. Since I used my parents' equipment, I fogged their property. And it's amazing. And it doesn't use as much chemical as you think. And kills the mosquitoes. It was really nice. So if you need your property fogged, shoot us an email, I guess. I don't travel very far because I have to use my parents' mule instead of my Gator. But there you go. We're also been working on some things called, about these, this raised garden, the raised garden fad of America. You put dirt in a bucket, and you put plants in the bucket, or a cattle feeder, or they have ones you can buy that are more decorative. And of course, we bought the more decorative ones because why not? And they do look awesome. They're about a zillion bolts to put them together, but they're pretty cool. And we're in the process of getting them all put together. I've got a master plan of the garden layout. When I start doing videos, I'll show you what's going on, but the fact of the matter is I don't have any tips like a YouTuber, like this is how you do a bolt. There's a lot of bolts. It's helpful if you have more than one person for the tall ones. So obviously I watched YouTube videos about how to put these things together. They were not in Spanish, conveniently. But they do look cool and got quite a masterful design. Our garden is going to be amazing. We haven't had a garden in a couple of years, largely because of construction and things like that. And we just had to, where the garden was all tore up by trucks and things like that. So that's coming back. Very excited about it and in the process. More to come. We're in the Psalms and Bible in a Year. I'm sure that you are listening to the daily broadcast of the Sunnyside of Life Bible in a Year experience. We're in Psalms now. Been there for a while, just a few days at this point, but it is about 5 Psalms per day, and I'm enjoying them. I find that I didn't spend a lot of time in the Psalms besides Psalm 23, right? The 23rd Psalms. Everybody has that for their funeral. And I guess it's a good one for a funeral, but it's a great one for life too, So that obviously I think that has already aired, but if you're not listening to the Bible in the Year, do it. Like the problems that we have in our life and the problems that we have as a nation is mostly because people just don't actually know the Bible. They don't actually read the Bible. They don't actually listen to the words in the Bible, the entire thing. There's a lot of people who pick and choose and quote different things or think they know, or maybe their church occasionally cracks open the Bible, but a lot of churches don't anymore. I don't know. Read the Bible, number one. And if you're listening to the Bible in a Year, I promise you, I'm reading every word, from Genesis 1 all the way to the end of Revelation this year. And it's free. And some of these you have to pay for, but not with me. And you just have to put up with my potential mispronunciation of certain names and places. So we're in the Psalms, and it's a great benefit to read those. It'll be interesting when you get to Proverbs, which comes after Psalms, because those are just like one-liners that Solomon laid out. Write this down. This is going to be brilliant. Some scribe is following him around all the time. Did you hear what I said over there? That was amazing. And he was supposedly, he's the wisest guy, the wisest man in history. And so he had a lot of wise things to say. So you got the whole book of Proverbs. That's coming next, obviously, after the Psalms. I wondered, having already covered Kings, First and Second Kings, and we talked about King Solomon, I wondered if, and maybe we'll do a parody about this when I get back to doing some parodies. We're going to get a little bit more free time to make some parodies. But I thought it would be interesting if the Queen of Sheba shows up to see Solomon because he's so wise. She's heard these amazing things about him. And he explains everything to her. But in today's world, he would be guilty of mansplaining the Queen of Sheba. Like she's a queen, what do they say? Slay queen. The Queen of Sheba shows up. Slay queen. And then there's King Solomon, the wisest man of all time. And she asked the question, and then he would answer her or start to answer her. And then she would roll her eyes and be like, don't mansplain to me. More to come on that. I do write these scripts out. So we've got some scripts in the works right now. Just haven't gotten around to producing them. I need to do that. Man, more projects. And now I'm going to tell you a sad story before we get into the rest of the story of what we're going to talk about today. I'm in a good mood, but this is something you should know. And it brings sadness to my heart, to be honest with you. I didn't bring it up last week because it was still too fresh. And what happened is we had two cats. We have one cat now. Edith, the mother, is still with us. She came to us by walking over from my parents' place pregnant. She was preggo. I knew it. And she dropped two kittens, and one didn't make it. And then we had her one daughter, Edie. And Edie was a great cat, and she was very healthy. I would say she's a little overweight after the winter. But both Edith and Edie, and probably all cats, what they love to do is crawl into vehicles. And so we've caught them doing this, and we remove them, and we always check our vehicles. Well, not always. We try to check our vehicles, and we warn visitors, hey, watch out for where the cats, all of that. And I've had delivery trucks come, and we'll be unloading things with a pallet, with the forks and things like that. And those cats will climb in, and it's like, it's just ridiculous. But that's what cats do. And that's what Edie did a couple of weeks ago. And she climbed into my truck, and I went to town to build press boxes, to keep working on that project that I've been talking about forever. And I may be a mile away from the house. I'm away to town, and I'm, kind of that boom, boom, and I was like, that's weird. I didn't see anything cross the road. And I got about another mile down the road, and I thought, oh my gosh, what if that was one of our cats? And then I thought a little bit more, and I was like, I got to turn around and find out. And I was kind of freaking out a little bit. Like, I didn't want to kill one of our cats, but I did. She was dead when I arrived at the scene of the crime, where she had been run over, as she must have tried to jump out of the car or the truck. She climbed up under the undercarriage, and I don't know what happened, but she got hit by the wheel, and that was it. And it was a mess. Like, I'm not going to get into the gory details because they were gory, but I picked her up, all the parts, and put her in the back of the truck, and then just really upsetting. And then put her in, but put her in a little box, and then buried her next to her sibling. And it was just really sad. And I called, obviously, my wife, and I told my mother-in-law, and she kind of loves the cats. And and it's terrible. I know that cats don't know they're cats, but I know that she was a cat, and she was our cat. And that is very sad. And so miss her. I think about it all the time, probably, not all the time, but it does come up. And unfortunately, So for our family, we tell the kids, and everybody's sad. I told Heidi, she was sad, but everybody had the advantage, except me, of seeing and remembering Edie the last time they saw her. Well, I also have that memory of the last time I saw her, except my memory is very different, and it's very sad and gross. And so, so Edie's not with us. Edith still is, and she's slimming up, actually. She's fine. She's maybe too fine, to be honest. She seems like she's kind of enjoying life as the single lady around here. Fixed single lady, but she won't be having any more kids. But anyway, that's the story of Edie, and her free rides come to an end, and we miss her. So there's that little bit of sadness for you. But I promise you, we're going to tell better stories. And I've got the rest of the episode today is a doozy. It's a true story that I'm going to tell you right after this.
Is the mic hot right now?
The Waldorf Gridiron Club podcast.
So we've got some changes to talk about.
Very exciting time here at Waldorf University.
We're back, baby.
Hey, we can talk about it.
All right, let's go, boys. A brand new season.
It's a brand new season. This is season 3.
Woo. Troy, it's been a spell.
You made me laugh about that.
I know.
Something we have not had in a very long time.
Yeah, well, the first 4 games, the only one we have is that September 7th with St. Francis at home.
Or you got a little Subaru. Why do you think a couch is going to fit in there? This is ridiculous.
I'm taking the nootropics, so I'm really sharp. Then I deaden it with this.
Good.
Yeah.
Healthy.
Just water.
Yeah. Mostly water.
Yeah.
Some grain.
Put that in the bloopers. We've got 40 guys signed right now, and we'll probably end up, 60, 65, something like that. But
It's great to have 4 city kids on the roster. It really is. And just local kids in general.
he is an analytical dude.
Oh, my gosh.
She was like, the guy inside's a little creepy, so you need to go in and get it. And I said, don't call him creepy. There's a ring camera right there. He's going to hear us.
This is season 3 now.
We're back, baby.
I interviewed 25 people. I didn't get to talk football. I didn't get to go listen to speakers. I didn't get to do as much as I would like to do at a convention.
There's no rules in podcasting.
No, it's your deal. Yeah, we made some adjustments to practice, and the guys, the players are, we were doing boot camp. They were up every single day.
Ready for the kickoff?
It's the return of the Waldorf Gridiron Club podcast, season 3, starting Friday, March 22nd, on your favorite podcast platform.
And forever and always,
Go Warriors. I was really worried that you were going to forget that that's how you always signed off.
Actually, I think I nailed it.
Okay, we're back. Now listen. Here's what's going to happen. I'm going to tell you a story that is true. It is about a time, and I have many stories from my recruiting years, recruiting for the Iowa Army National Guard, and I have alluded to some of them. I have, maybe inferred some different things about what I did as a recruiter and that type of thing. But I want to occasionally open up. It's been almost 3 years since I retired, and it's been 5 years since I've been in recruiting. So I feel like I can open up and tell some stories about recruiting and my experiences that are interesting, maybe hilarious. And so we're going to start out with this one. And now, ladies and gentlemen, true recruiter stories featuring me, your host, retired recruiter guy, Troy Thompson. And this story is called The Ballad of the Mutton Chop Ring. Now, the names of those involved have been changed to protect their identities. But I assure you that every part of this story that I'm about to tell you is true, unscripted, by memory only, and my memory hardly ever fails. So, with all sincerity, I hope you pay attention to this first, I think of many, true recruiter stories. The Ballad of the Mutton Chop Ring. So how I'm going to tell this is, I was on my way back from Des Moines after enlisting somebody into the Iowa Army National Guard. And I'm not going to say the year because I can't remember that. But it was a while ago. It was probably 8 years ago. Maybe longer. Maybe longer. But it was at least 8 years ago. And one of the things that we had at that time, and they probably have, well, maybe it's gotten better, technology being what it is. But you could go and you could get if you called 1-800-GO-GUARD, then you would get in touch with a recruiter. The phone would be answered by some person for the National Guard Bureau, who then would get your zip code, and then that zip code would be tied to a recruiter for that area, which in this case, obviously, was me. It was for Clear Lake. And that situation there is exactly what happened. Somebody, a girl, we shall call her Susanna. That is not her name. Oh, Susanna. Susanna called 1-800-GO-GUARD and wanted to join the National Guard. The 1-800-GO-GUARD operator then got the zip code of where she was, and asked, and then called me. They keep the person on the line. We'll get in touch. We'll see if we get a hold of your recruiter. And since I was on my way back from Des Moines, and I always answered my phone when I'm driving the government car, and I don't think we had hands-free then, so look out, America. So I called. They got the call. I answered it. 1-800-GO-GUARD. This is the operator. And for 1-800-GO-GUARD, I'm calling about so-and-so. We have a person who's interested in joining the National Guard, and they're in Clear Lake. Is that your recruiting area? We have you listed as such. Well, yes, it is my recruiting area. I happen to be on my way back to that neck of the woods right now, in fact. And so they put me through. So I talked to Susanna, and Susanna said, gave me her story. I asked her some qualifying questions quickly, and then said, okay, well, I'll stop by and visit with you. I'm on my way back right now. I could be there. I'll be there in 45 minutes. And so she said that would work out fine. So I got the address, and I went to that address. I went to Susanna's place. Well, I think it was Susanna's place. It was Susanna's place. Now, Susanna didn't give me a lot of details. She said she, kind of told me her, I asked, do you have any criminal things? Do you have, did you graduate from high school? Did you, just the, quick ones, any medical problems that you can think of, married, kids, that type of thing. She says, well, I'm not married, but I do have one kid. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, that's okay. In the National Guard, you can have a kid and be in the National Guard. That's okay. Not all the services like that, but National Guard, it's all right. So I got back to the Clear Lake area and was excited to meet with Susanna. She sounded like she was very serious. She seemed to be qualified to be in the National Guard. And so I drove to this apartment house, a complex, and knocked on the door. And wasn't quite sure what I would find. Now, this was a 2-bedroom apartment. And I know that because I was there for a while. And not for anything, because I walked in. And the door flies open. It's Susanna. And she's in a tizzy. Because she's got, listen, I've got like 20 minutes. I got 20 minutes, 10, 15 minutes, maybe 20 tops that I can talk to you about this, being in the National Guard, but then I have to go to the jail. This is the first thing that I'm hearing of this. And I'm like, okay, well, we set up the appointment and you said that this would work out, but all right, we'll talk for 20 minutes and then we'll see how that goes. Now in the apartment, so as you come on in and in the apartment, you have, there's a kitchen to the left, very small kitchen, cluttered. And then you have a living area. So there's a TV on a TV stand. It was a flat panel, if I remember that correctly. It seems in my mind that that's what it was. Against the wall, directly across, adjacent to the TV, were 2 dudes sitting on a love seat. I don't think they were in love, but they were good friends. And they were actually, they had worked together. let's call these two guys T-Bone and Bluto. All right, so T-Bone is packing. He's sitting there, and he's got a pistol in a holster on his hip. Now I've walked into a variety of situations as a recruiter. We'll talk about more of them as this goes, other episodes as this goes on. But it wasn't the first time that I've walked into a situation where people are armed. Well, obviously, I'm in the military, so people are armed all the time. But I mean, in this situation, you're in a place you've never been before, in a somewhat shady apartment complex, and there's this girl who says she wants to join the National Guard. We know she's a single mom. I can hear a child somewhere, not crying, but just, around. And it's not a big apartment. And then you have T-Bone and Bluto. Now, I call the other guy Bluto because if you have ever seen the movie Animal House, John Belushi's character, Blutarsky, that's what he looked like. He was a bit overweight. He had dark hair, and he was just kind of sitting there. Nice guy. They all were very nice. It seemed that they were nice. And I did not react to T-Bone and his, the pistol packing situation, because I don't really care, as long as he doesn't shoot me. Now, as I'm looking at, so I walk in the door, imagine the TV, and the TV stand is on my right against that wall. Straight across from me on that wall is T-Bone and Bluto on a love seat. There's a hallway that runs between the kitchen and the living area back to the rest of the apartment, which is just 2 rooms and a bathroom. I did not go back there. I just stayed in the living area. But there is a seat, there is a chair kind of, by the kitchen counter area, right? So there's a chair, there's a place for me to sit. And so I can sit there, and Susanna is just a buzz. She's just running around, and she's fomenting about the situation that she's about to deal with. And it's not me that she's talking about. We'll get into that in a second. Directly then, so when I sit in this chair, so as I'd walked in the door, this chair would be on my left. So I would sit down there, and then directly across from me would be another dude. Now, this dude is one of the people that actually rents this apartment. So he and Susanna rent this apartment. They are kind of, she's the mom. I don't know what he is. Not the dad, but they're dating or something, or maybe they're not dating. Maybe they're dating now. That is unclear to me entirely. But they are raising a kid who's still in diapers, and I think that's like 2. Is that too long to be in diaper? I feel like that's too long to be. I know this because at one point, baby Susanna comes out just wearing a diaper. And it looks like it's about time to be changed. Or maybe it's been long past time to be changed. So that's the situation that I'm in. But across from me directly is another guy. And we'll call him Admiral Tubbs. And I call him Admiral Tubbs because, for one, he could shed a few pounds, okay? He wasn't quite as big as Bluto, but Bluto was big in a way that if you could just run a little bit, he'd just be a big guy. Like, he'd just probably slim down. He could lift a lot. He looks really strong. Admiral Tubbs just looked tubby. And the reason he's an admiral is because I quickly find out that he actually has been in the Navy. He's a Navy veteran. And he's potentially interested in joining as well. Well, now this is interesting. Admiral Tubbs is prior service. That's a good thing. But the thing about the Navy is they don't really do basic training. They have a basic training. They all go out to Great Lakes, which is in Chicago. It's like 6 weeks long. And they don't really, they don't learn how to shoot. They don't really learn any soldiering stuff. They barely know how to march. And I mean, I don't know what they do, maybe they clean things and try on different uniforms because the Navy's got lots of uniforms. I don't know. I've never been a sailor, so I don't know what they do. I admire the Navy for some things, but basic training is not one of them. In fact, the Army says if you're in the Navy and you want to come and be in the Army or the Army National Guard or the Army Reserves, you got to go back through basic training because we don't think your basic training is real. And so they don't like that. The Army runs farther. They do push-ups. They do sit-ups. The Navy doesn't do any of that stuff. Maybe they do. I don't know. But they don't do it to the Army's standards. And so you have to go back through basic training. So finding this out from Admiral Tubbs, I'm like, he's considered getting back in. And perhaps this would be for him as well. And so I'm like, well, that's great. I just, I would, do you know what your RE code? RE is reenlistment or reentry code. What's your RE code? And it was a 1, which is good, which means you can get back in. Really any service. And I said, all you have to do is, do you mind if I ask you how much you weigh? Because, he's like, no, I could stand to lose a few pounds. And I'm thinking, let's talk maybe a few stones. Scottish type, but I was like, yeah, now that you just understand that with Navy guys and with Air Force, sorry, Air Force, you really don't have a basic training. Like no one takes that seriously. And let's just assume that Space Force isn't even real. So no, they don't. I was like, you and the Air Force, we don't take your basic training seriously. You'd have to go back through our basic training. I don't write the rules. That's just the way it is. And with some, happiness, I do get some enjoyment out of telling Navy and Air Force people that. But so they're fine, right? And she's like, yeah, I don't know if I could go back through basic training. And I'm like, well, you really didn't in the first place. You went to the Navy. But if that were the case, I said, just so you understand, you'd have to go through the 10 weeks and then you'd have to go to your advanced job, your individual training. So you're going to be gone for some period of time. So he's contemplating all of that. And I don't care. Because I don't like him. Like, he seems like a know-it-all. Because he's the prior service guy. He's the guy that's been in. I was in, man. Now, by the way, the Marines, their basic training counts. We'll accept the Marines, okay? And Marines make great soldiers. They'll always be a Marine, and they make great soldiers. So we're very happy to have them in the National Guard. I loved recruiting Marines. Once they got past the fact that they joined the wrong service, now they can call themselves a Marine, and they can be tough in their head for the rest of their lives and still then get paid more, get promoted faster, and then make a career of it, on the reserve side and still call themselves, a Marine or I was in the Corps. It works out pretty good for them. And so happy to have them. They don't have to go through basic training again. At least back then they didn't. I'm sure maybe now things have changed. I don't think they've changed. But not the Navy. So Admiral Tubbs, I don't really take him seriously. And he has got a lot of input that is not particularly accurate. And it's kind of old and outdated and also inaccurate. So it's all just like not really particularly useful. So Susanna's situation, back to Susanna, because she's, like I said, a flutter. Why in the world would she want to? Well, she does want to join the National Guard. She is serious. I'm like, well, can I get some information from you very quickly? So I start quickly I was really good at the paperwork, quickly filling out things that I needed in order to begin her packet for enlistment. Because I'm like, firm, I want to join the National Guard. I'm like, okay, I'll do a bunch of this stuff and get it started. We'll have to reschedule. But may I ask, why is it that you need to take off? Why do you have to go to the jail? She says, I got to go to the jail so that I can tell that son of a what I think of him to his face, and visiting hours end at 5. Okay. So she's got to go to the jail, the local jail, like right in town, or maybe it's the county jail, to go see her ex-boyfriend. And she's going to tell him what of a SOB he actually is. And this is incredibly important because she's going to testify against him. And I said, what in the world is this all about? She's like, I got to go. So she leaves in a flutter, leaves the 2-year-old saggy diaper kid. And now I'm here with T-Bone, Admiral Tubbs, Bluto, and this is just a weird situation. But I'm a recruiter, and I was pretty good at it. So I'm like, I've already established what Admiral Tubbs' situation is. So I turned my attention. Well, first I better explain what the deal is with Susanna. So she's gone. And I am asking the boys now, sitting around like you do, what's up with Susanna? Like, what's this ex-boyfriend? He's like, yeah, I don't know if you're aware of this, but there's been this guy in the newspaper lately, and this is all true. So there was a dude in the news who got arrested for assaulting a teenage girl. And so he's in jail, as he should be, for statutory rape, and maybe worse. I don't know. So that I don't know that girl. I don't know that, but the dude that's in jail, I was like, oh my God, that's Mutton Chops. Now the reason I said it's Mutton Chops is because I had seen his picture in the paper. And one of the things that I did for entertainment and also business as a recruiter is I would check the local jails just to see who was in it, who was in the local jails in the counties that I represented, just so I could kind of keep a tab on, well, one, to see if there's any of my soldiers in there, any of the people that I'm working with to become soldiers, or just it's kind of entertaining because mugshots are never great. But I distinctly remember this dude's mugshot because he was a chubby oval face and he had these enormous mutton chop sideburns, like Civil War mutton chop. He had no chin, so he should have grown a beard, but he did not. Maybe he couldn't. I don't know. But he decided he was going full on cheek back to the ear mutton chop, long ones. And I just thought I'm like so ridiculous. And yet, not particularly different than many of the other terrible mugshots in the Saragordo County Jail. And so I was like, oh, that guy. Yeah, I know Mutton Chops. And they're like, well, he is, you know why he has those sideburns? And I'm like, I have no idea why anyone in their right mind would have sideburns like that. First of all, military regulation, at least for the Army, AR 670-1, you would have to, if you were going to have sideburns, they have to be in line with the bottom of your earlobe, and they can't be, shaped like, they just have to be straight, and they have to be in line with the whole of your ear. So the bottom of the whole of your ear, not even your earlobe. So it can't be these long, ridiculous, things. We're not a disco army. Maybe now we are with all of the modern changes in the Pentagon. But back then we still had some pride, in how we looked. And so you couldn't do that. And so I didn't, and I never had. Now I have sideburns because I have a beard, and that's different. But I can have a beard now because I'm retired. But back then I did not. So I didn't think too highly of Mutton Chops. Well, at all, because he's in jail, and he's in jail for a nefarious crime against a young lady, and allegedly. And then also, he was found guilty, so he was, he's guilty. But we didn't know that at the time. And so Susanna had gone off to give him a piece of her mind and to let that SOB know she was going to testify against him, tell him the court everything she knows. I don't know why she felt compelled that she had to do that. I think it would have been pretty obvious when she was in court that was going to happen. But that's what she had to do. And so I'm sitting there with Bluto and Admiral Tubbs and T-Bone, and we're learning about Mutton Chops. And Mutton Chops, turns out, they explained to me very seriously that the reason he has those things on his face is because he's a Civil War reenactor. And he's actually quite a good Civil War reenactor. Now, I have met some Civil War reenactors, and I think that it's an interesting hobby. And I particularly appreciate, the actual historians that are involved with that. They're really serious. And some of these people spend a lot of money getting their uniforms and all of that. I always thought it was a little weird when you're wearing the Confederacy uniforms, but I guess we have to fight somebody. We can't all be on the North. And I suppose the farther south you go, there's probably more popular down there if you're wearing the gray uniforms. Little tidbit of information, if you're not aware of this, the gray color of the uniforms in the Civil War was just what the National Guard would wear. So the state militias all wore gray uniforms. It doesn't matter if they were the North or the South. It just so happens that the Federal Army was blue. That was, federal blue is a color. And it turns out that when you go to war with the North and they remain, the federal government, they turn everybody into the blue uniforms. They also had the industrial ability to make all those uniforms fairly rapidly. But all of the state militias were all gray uniforms. So that's why the South was in gray, is because they were all just state militia. And so they were in the gray uniforms as the state militia. Iowa was in gray uniforms. In fact, when we went down to fight the first battle down in Missouri, we were still wearing gray uniforms, but so were they. So in the fog of war, it was ridiculous, right? The gun smoke is gray. Everybody's wearing gray. It's ridiculous. So it was good that they went with the color coding back then. It was hard enough. Brothers fighting brothers. Brothers fighting brothers. We're on the same side. You just got the same uniform. I didn't know you look like them. Anyway, so these Civil War reenactors, but these guys are, young guys. So it's like, well, I'm, at first I thought it was ridiculous. As a real soldier, it does annoy me a little bit when you have people who are not soldiers, who like fantasize about being soldiers and never become a real soldier. Perhaps they can't. And so they play soldier, which I did as a kid, but not as an adult. And these aren't serious historians, although they do have some historical knowledge, because you have to, once you get into it, you're LARPing, and, you have to, gotta have some historical sense. And they probably do learn a lot from the older folks that I have no idea where they do these reenactments. I've never been to one. I'm sure it's cool. But I thought it was not cool at the time, and I thought it was ridiculous. And now I'm looking at these three guys, T-Bone and Bluto and Admiral Tubbs, and guess what? They're all Civil War reenactors. So it's not just mutton chops. Susanna. Oh, Susanna, also a Civil War reenactor. A lady Civil War reenactor. My dearest Susanna. It's been a fortnight. Anyway, so these guys, I can't make fun of them directly because they might join the National Guard. And yet in my mind, I'm like, well, the only one who's not overweight is T-Bone, and he's packing a pistol. So he says, I said to him, I assume as I go around, by the way, regarding the pistol, I said, I'm assuming that your background is fine. You're carrying a pistol, no felonies. And he's like, well, that's right. I've never even had a traffic ticket. So I really wasn't worried about T-Bone. He seemed kind of innocent in a way, and I'll explain more about that in a little bit. But anyway, these people, they're all Civil War reenactors. I ran into a nest of Civil War reenactors, and Mutton Chops was their leader. And Mutton Chops had been in a film. Now, this is what they're telling me. He's serious. Like, Mutton Chops has been, that's not what they called him. They had a real name. But yeah, he's been in movies and stuff. Because what they'll do is when they're making a period piece, they'll just call up the local, they'll put a call out to all of the people that reenact the Civil War for fun. And they'll get that way they bring their little outfits, they put them on, they already have their little guns, muskets, they've kind of done reenactments before, so they're used to acting. And yeah, it's pretty cheap for the movie. They're just like, yeah, let's do a Civil War movie, bring all the Civil War. I think they probably pay them a little bit, maybe a daily or something like that. I don't really know. But I was like, he's been in a movie? Come on, man, I don't believe that. And they're like, no, he has. And I was like, what's the movie called? And they said, all right, this will put it in perspective. I don't know when this came out, but the movie was called Abraham Lincoln, Vampire Killer or Slayer or whatever. And I just burst out laughing. Because I did not believe that was a real movie. It is a real movie. I've seen it. I've seen it because I knew that Mutton Chops might be in it and this whole ridiculous story. But it was before it was released. So whenever that happened, that's when this whole time thing is occurring. But Abraham Lincoln, Vampire Slayer, whatever. I'm like, come on. And I did not believe that was a real movie. And they're like, it's a real movie. He went down to Louisiana and everything. Blah, 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 blah. I'm like, all right, you guys, I guess it's cool. Fine. And so I start filling out. I was like, do you want to join the National Guard, Bluto? And he's like, yeah, I do. I want to change my life. I'm like, well, Bluto, let me help you change your life. Because he had never committed a crime. So Bluto and T-Bone and Admiral Tubbs, they are also all security guards. Although Bluto's not a security guard anymore. And when I say security guard, that's not true. They were armored truck drivers. Like, so they carry the bags of money. And that's part of their deal. So they are sort of military, but not really. And anyway, so they know each other for this. Bluto's working somewhere else. He's the youngest, by the way. Not just like a recent high school, 1 or 2 years out of high school. Okay. So he's qualified, but overweight. We got to slim him down. Talking about Bluto. Admiral Tubbs, interested, qualified. He's overweight. Also not interested in probably going back to basic training. So he's out. T-Bone, interested, super interested. No crimes, no, problems. Except one. No medical issues. He does have one small issue, and that's he never graduated from high school. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, so what we need to do for everybody, T-Bone and Bluto, is we need to have you take the ASVAB test. Everybody has to take the ASVAB. And I would like to have you guys just take a pre-test so that I can get a feeling for how you'll do when you actually join. Because you do have to take the Armed Service Vocational Aptitude Battery. Now, Admiral Tubbs would be fine in that regard because he's already taken it, so he doesn't need to take it again. But again, Admiral Tubbs. So they agree to do all this. I collect their information. And this entire crazy situation results in Susanna enlisting in the National Guard, but never going to training. So I had to do a waiver for her so she could, which is what you have to do when you have a child and you're going to be a single parent in the National Guard. It just says that, you can't use your kid to get out of service. Like you have to have a plan. We demand that they have a plan of action. Who's going to take care of your kid on your weekends and 2 weeks in the summer and if you get deployed. So you have to have that. And I did all that. And then she never went to training. So total bust there. But T-Bone and Bluto succeeded. Bluto lost a lot of weight. He came back from basic training and he looked amazing. And he was a good soldier. He's a nice kid. I really liked him. And I like T-Bone too. But T-Bone, we're going to get into a little bit more about T-Bone because he had to, in order for him to get in, he had to get his diploma. So Bluto was able to get in relatively soon. I mean, it took about 6 months for him to cut down the weight to where he needed to be so he could pass the tape test, which is how the Army measures your body fat. Never saw Admiral Tubbs again. Susanna got in first, then Bluto, then T-Bone. The reason T-Bone took so, and Mutton Chops went to jail, as he well should. So enough about the Mutton Chops. But T-Bone, he had to get a diploma. And so he has a couple of options. Now, you can get a diploma or you can get a GED. And he said, now, I think that I have a diploma. I was like, well, that's great. Because he had... T-Bone's like 30 years old. Okay, so it's been a while. He's not quite 30. Maybe he's 28. It's been a while since he's been in school. And he didn't finish school, so it's been even longer than normal would be. And T-Bone is like researching. His mom had paid for a correspondence course so that he could get his high school diploma or equivalency diploma from one of these mail order companies. Back when they were doing mail order diplomas through correspondence courses, like the kind they would send you, you would complete the work, and then you would send it in. Well, it turns out that after much investigation, he actually didn't finish that either. And he was very upset about that. But they said, hey, no problem. We have a quick course. You can do it online. You don't have to do correspondence anymore because it's the 21st century. And you can just do it online and you can pick up where you left off. So he does that all on his own because he wants to get that diploma instead of a GED, which is designed to fail, a third of high school graduates. So if somebody has a GED, they're not dumb at all. Like they have probably are more successful with the subjects, the 5 subjects that they have to test out of, than perhaps the high school graduates that we all celebrate. So he didn't want to do the GED thing, and based on his pretest, I could see why. But he did pass that, and he also. But the funny thing is he did all this work the second time around with correspondence school to get this diploma that we don't recognize. Like the Army's like, no, that's not a real school. And then so I was like, I'm sorry. When I told him that, I'm like, I'm sorry, this isn't credentialed. I wish you would have told me you were going to go through all of this. So he did eventually go on and get his GED, and he did get into the National Guard. But he was so mad about that, he called the company up, this correspondence school, I don't know. He called them up and chewed them out like the secretary. It's probably like, a dude and his wife in their trailer somewhere in Indiana or wherever it happens. Not that it has to be Indiana, but you know what I mean. And so the who knows? And he chews them out, and he's like, Did you know that the United States Army does not accept this as a real diploma? And they're like, well, yeah, we knew that, but I mean, that usually doesn't matter to the people that we service. And he's like, and he's telling me this whole thing in my office, and he's just very flummoxed by it and upset. And I'm kind of withholding giggling because he's T-Bone. And he's like, and I mean, I told them that I cannot believe that my mother had spent her hard-earned money for me to get a diploma that doesn't mean anything. And I was like, yeah, how much did that cost? And he was like, it was $75. Okay. All right. So these guys, I made them all truck drivers. And Susanna would have been a truck driver too. She didn't make it. T-Bone and Bluto. I think T-Bone didn't complete his entire 6-year contract. I think he had some issues physically, had some hard time passing the PT test, and eventually was, sent away. But Bluto finished, and we couldn't get him to re-enlist. He kind of went on and did his own thing, and but he did his thing too. And he had some struggles with weight again, and he had some struggles with fitness, but he made it through his 6 years. And so, in honor of Bluto and T-Bone, this amazing, maybe it's not that amazing, I just think it's a crazy story that you can walk in to a pack of Civil War reenactors, not knowing the situation whatsoever, in a tiny little apartment on a whim, on a call from the 1-800-GO-GUARD, and meet these incredible cast of characters who are tied into a weird, crime, but they're not tied, they're not participants, but all kind of witnesses or character witnesses in the direction that did not benefit mutton chops. And 3 of whom enlisted in the National Guard eventually. 2 of whom succeeded. 1 who made it all the way through his entire contract. And so I guess, why is that important to tell this story? I don't know. I've got lots of them. Was it great? I don't know. You can text the program and let me know. Was it not great? I don't know. But to me, it's a fond memory. And kind of funny and kind of ridiculous. It's a true recruiting story, the Ballad of the Mutton Chop Ring, as told by me. And there are more to come if you think it's worthwhile. But even if you don't, I'll probably tell them anyway.
Hi, this is Scott Bertelson. I was a public education instructor at Forest City High School for 39/40 Hooks Counting years. And during that time, I learned a lot about myself and life, as I still am now in my retirement. That's why I am hosting Mr. B's Dinner Party on this podcast platform. And I hope that you will join me at the dinner table for conversational morsels for the mind. Now, you may be wondering what that is. Well, you'll have to tune in to find out. But let me guarantee you, you will leave my dinner table feeling full and feeling satisfied.
Join Mr. B's Dinner Party from Sunnyside Farm Studios every other Wednesday, premiering August 23rd, 2023.
Hope that you will join me for Mr. B's Dinner Party on this platform.
Thanks for listening. And, as I reflect on this past week on D-Day and the young men who the average age was 19 that stormed Normandy and really saved Europe and the world, that's just an amazing. My grandpa was part of that effort. He wasn't part of D-Day. He was in the Army Air Corps. I got a great photo of him. He was in Europe and lost his brother there in Europe, also a flyer, and just a lot of family pride in that, and was one of my heroes growing up. certainly. And so I think about that every June 6th. I hope you do too, as we remember the 80th anniversary of D-Day last week. And these guys, they enlisted in the Guard. They did not storm Normandy. They didn't do that. But they did volunteer to do something that most Americans don't. And most Americans, I don't know, they don't think about ever doing. Or maybe they think that the only people that do that are, poor folks who can't get their correspondence diploma to matter. I don't know. That wasn't my case. That wasn't my story. And I was glad to have served with the people that I did, and glad to have the opportunity to bring people into the fold to serve and wear the uniform for the time that they did. And I'm proud of almost all of them. I didn't hit it out of the park every time with every enlistment, but I'm proud of the people that I served with and the folks that brought in and served their country and made a difference. And when the time comes around a little bit later in November and you want to thank a veteran, you can do that. And of course, we just had Memorial Day, and we'd already talked about that a couple of weeks ago. So thanks for joining me today. I hope that you don't find my stories about hay and the life on Sunnyside too boring, or this old recruiter story that I thought about the last couple of days as I was kind of ruminating on the folks that I know and the lives, the type of people that joined the military. Back then in World War II, they could volunteer, but a lot of them were drafted. In any case, all of them anticipated coming back. They had other things to do. They had plans too. They were busy too. And yet they did it. And a lot of them didn't come back. But I'm glad the ones that made it a part of their lives, for whether they came home or not, took the opportunity to serve the country and America, America and the world, the things that they did. Truly was great as a generation, and very much appreciated. All right, that's it. That's the end of the show. Thanks for joining me. I hope to see you, or I won't see you. Next week, I will be talking at you again right here on the Sunny Side of Life, where I hope you take the time this week to be the sunny side of someone else's life. I want to thank all our friends and guests for stopping by for this episode of the Sunny Side of Life. All the Sunny Side of Life players who stopped by, creative support provided every day by my incredible wife Heidi and our fantastic 4 boys. Thanks to every one of our listeners. That means you. A big shout out to my brothers and sisters in uniform holding the line around the world. Share the word, folks. Let the people know what we're up to. Subscribe so you never miss an episode, and follow us on social media. All skits are written or adapted and directed by me, Troy Thompson, and are produced here at Sunnyside Farm Studios and delivered to all platforms by Buzzsprout. Music and sound effects are provided by Soundstripe. The Sunny Side of Life is a weekly production about our life on the family farmstead here in Iowa, the liberties we prize, and the pursuits which make us happy. Now, none of this is possible without Christ in our lives. For the Lord God is our sun and our shield. He gives us grace and glory. So may the Lord bless you and keep you, and may the sunny side of your life, liberty and pursuits, be in Christ, and made evident unto you each and every day, and give you peace.